Welcome to the Lounge Lizards podcast. It's so good to have you here. It's a leisure and lifestyle podcast founded on our love of premium cigars, as well as whiskey, travel, food, work, and whatever else we feel like getting into. My name is Gizmo. Tonight I'm joined by Rooster, Senator, Pagoda, and Bam Bam. And our plan is to smoke a cigar, drink some wine, talk about life, and of course, have some laughs. So take this as your 78th official invitation to join us and become a card-carrying lounge lizard. Plan to meet us here once a week. We're going to smoke a Cuban cigar tonight, share our thoughts on it, and give you our formal lizard rating. We've resumed the recap of our trip to Cuba this week, focused on our visit to the La Corona factory, the manufacturing powerhouse of Cuban cigars. We reveal what we learned during our private factory tour, and we discuss the famous origin story of tonight's cigar, all among a variety of other things for the next 90 minutes. So sit back, get your favorite drink, light up a cigar, and enjoy as we pair Marques de Casa Concha Cabernet Sauvignon with the Cohiba Lancero. The original Lancero tonight from Cuba, Cohiba Lancero. The factory name is a Leguito number 1, 38 ring gauge by 7.5 inches. And I don't know if there's a cigar that we've had more requests to review than the Cohiba Lancero.
Is that true?
Yeah. I would say over 30 emails asking about when we were going to do this.
There's so much to talk about here.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. And we're coming off 2 weeks ago, our episode from featuring our tour and experience at El Leguito on our trip to Cuba. And tonight is part 3 of our Cuba trip recap. We're going to talk about La Corona. But first, let's talk about this cigar, boys. A classic, beautiful Lancero with the pigtail, of course.
What year is this?
This is an August 21 cigar.
Okay.
From El Leguito.
Very toothy.
Yeah, very toothy. The wrapper's not beautiful.
Yeah, I will say that's probably the most surprising thing. I mean, we talked about our experience at El Leguito on that other episode, and the wrapper, the attention to detail, making sure how it's so perfect, and there's shockingly, it's a pretty veiny, toothy
it's an
wrapper.
Imperfect wrapper.
Yeah,
for the price, right?
So yeah, these are very, very expensive now, as Bam is alluding to. We'll talk about that in a bit. But first, boys, let's cut this thing. Let's cut the pigtail off. See, we're getting on the cold draw on the wrapper.
More important than the wrapper, it has a pigtail for Rooster. So
exactly.
At least one of us is very happy.
So far.
Cold draw is delicious.
Mine has the perfect amount of resistance.
Mine's
just a slight resistance.
Yeah, a bit tight, but it's really very delicious on the cold draw.
It's really nice.
Getting some dried fruit.
Yeah, classic Cohiba, grassy, a little bit of honey on the cold draw.
Yeah.
A little bit of hay. Maybe a little vanilla.
Oh, it's really quite
the
good.
sweet notes are a little fundy-like.
Yeah, true.
All right, boys, let's light this thing. The Cohiba Lancero out of Cuba. Again, it's 38 ring gauge by 7.5 inches. This is the original Lancero, created in the late 60s for Fidel Castro.
Well, there's some special significance we've heard to the dimensions of this cigar.
Yeah, I think I'm having difficulty kind of verifying that, so we're going to call it a rumor. But in metric, it's 38 ring gauge by 192 millimeters long, which is supposed to be directly correlated to the age of Fidel when they created Cohiba, or he found his love of this specific blend from the person who was rolling these. And the 192 millimeters directly correlates to his height, which was rumored to be somewhere around 6'3", 6'4". So that's what we heard. I can't verify that on the internet, but that's the rumor. So we're going to run with it because it's a good story.
Outstanding on the light. Wow. Just what I remembered it to be.
I've really fallen in love with these cigars.
Oh, yeah.
Really fallen in love with these
What
cigars.
year did you say this is?
This is from August 21. So they're about 2.5 years old.
All right, so I'll say I'm probably the biggest Cohiba skeptic in the group.
That's changing.
I don't know about that.
Not a lot, honestly. It's not changing much. But my take has usually been, with heavy age, I've had some of the best cigars I've ever smoked have happened to be Cohiba Robusto from 05 I smoked last year. absolutely incredible. Was a 10 all day. My problem has been younger Cohibas. Honestly, have been like a 7 for me. Nothing's really cracked a top score, but to hear that this is 21 on the light, this is sweet and creamy and just tasty. This is really good.
It's a delicious cigar.
I think that these perform better, in my opinion, than a lot of the other Cohibas that I've had at a similar age, namely the Siglo series, aside from the Siglo 2, especially the Cohiba Robusto and the Esplendido. I think both of those cigars with only 2 to 3 years of age, they're not even close to hitting their stride.
The Coro.
The Coro and the Esplendido.
5 years for those, I think.
4 to 5 years, I think, is really where you hit your sweet spot. And I think 8 is probably the magic number for those. But that's a lot of time investment on top of your money investment.
Or 15 or 20.
Yeah.
Like that Cobra I had. I mean, it was literally spectacular, but it's just a hell of a time to wait.
I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think the blend is a little bit different than in Cohibas in general, as it used to be. I think the 14s and 15s and before that, that they were a little bit. They had more oomph. They had more flavor. They had more.
Could be.
I don't know, a little bit more spice. A little bit. It tastes very different now to me. I mean, I don't know how the 2015 Coros. I mean,
or 05.
05.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I mean,
So I have
spectacular.
I have 14 Coros from Lub 14 Coros out of the Upman factory, which are really, really amazing. But the Esplendidos that I have from 2014 are just, it's starting to rival the Vegas Robenia Classicos with my favorite box that I have in my humidor. But that's a long time to age those things, man. You're talking almost 10 years.
Question for you.
Yep.
Giz. You haven't always been a Cohiba man.
Yep.
When did you start pursuing these? Really, and why and how?
So I had a...
Can I take a stab at this?
Go ahead.
He had every other cigar and he had nothing else left to buy but Cohiba.
That's a damn good answer.
I mean, he's not wrong.
He's probably right.
He's not wrong, but he's not right in that I had a very, very old Cohiba Robusto.
Given to you?
Yes, that it was given to me. And then I was gifted by Grindr a fiver of the Selection Pyramides. And it was I think it was an 05 Cohiba Pyramid in there. And that's
quite the gift.
That knocked me on my ass.
Of course.
It was, and I got the Robusto.
You got the
version
Robusto.
of that, which is how
I got the
the
Pyramids.
05 Coro.
Exactly.
And the rest of us got nothing.
Well, it was
for hosting.
We
and
did a
producing
bunch
the
of stuff. We did a
podcast.
bunch
It
of
was.
stuff.
It was very
for
generous.
this. It was for that. Yeah, I got
You
it.
were specifically left out
I know that.
on purpose.
All right, Bam is going to host and produce the next podcast,
I'm looking forward to it.
which means in 2036 we'll have our next episode.
Let me call my tech guy.
By the way, I'm sure he has a few Cohibas in his tower.
Oh, he definitely
Yeah,
does.
he does.
He definitely does.
That's a no.
So the answer to your question, Bam, is it kind of blew me away. The problem with those Selection Pyramids and the Selection Robustos is they're in a really tight little cedar box. They get a little bit cedar forward unnecessarily. So then I had an 08 Lancero that was also gifted to me. That blew me away. And then I really started down the rabbit hole. And I've fallen in love with the Lancero and the Esplendido. But the problem is they're so goddamn expensive.
Yeah. And
Like this is $100 cigar right now.
not easy to get.
No. And, as we discussed on the Monte Fortuna shit show episode with Dan quite a while back when I bought the fake box of Coros, there are so many counterfeits out there.
Yeah, true.
So what are you guys thinking? This is going to require us to smoke slowly, but
Yeah,
it's a beautiful cigar.
it's a delicate, elegant cigar with really good flavor on the sweeter side for me. Not so much tobacco or cedar, but I'm getting more fruit notes, some dessert notes,
floral.
and a bit
Get a
of
little
floral
bit of
notes.
floral
Yeah, a
notes.
little bit. Yeah.
I mean, I'm with Bam in that I get a ton of dessert notes on this,
Oh yeah.
which is not what I associate Cohiba with.
That's true.
So for
Like
me, this
bacon
is
spice kind of thing?
a
or-
little bit. I mean, this is like
That's true.
To me, it's like
this is
honey.
like a
Honey
honey.
and-
That's
honey
what I'm going.
vanilla.
It's like honey drizzled on
Grass.
some kind of not even like
I would say a
like
cream,
a brioche or something.
There you
Like
go.
it's
That works.
really
It's
just
it's kind of got like a
there's like this creamy breadiness. It's kind of as the base, and then all these sweet and floral, like Rooster's saying. This is nothing like any Cohiba
Yeah.
I've ever had. This is not. If you gave me this blind, I would never in my wildest dreams say Cohiba. But that's a really good thing because I don't usually love Cohiba's flavor profile. Like this reminds me of what some fundies are, but this is on steroids. Like this is even
Agreed.
better than any fundy just so far that I've had.
Agreed.
I bet that opinion would change if you knew the price when you did a blind test. So if you were said this is $100 a stick,
Well, then we'd immediately know Cohiba.
Exactly.
Do we know the construction of this guy? The amount of the particular leaves?
No,
No.
of course not. That's a trade secret. I actually did see the breakdown one time when I was at one of the factories, and they quickly
Pulled it away.
when I was there on a tour. This was before we were there, but
you took a picture, didn't you?
No. You're trying to get me killed? Yeah, I find these are really, really nice at this age, 2 to 3 years. Even younger. I mean, I've been smoking a lot of young
This is at
ones.
21. It's smoking amazing.
That's
That's
the thing I'm
fantastic.
so confused by is every other Cohiba I've tried within this range of age has been so underwhelming and disappointing. And this is such a overperformer. I don't know how.
I happen to think it has something to do with the ring gauge. There isn't as much tobacco that you have in this as you have in other cigars. They maybe hone in on the specific leaves that they want to use here, and you're getting more flavor than anything else. You know?
Well, it's the same 4 leaves that they use. It's just different in different portions,
Yeah.
right?
The one thing I'm finding interesting is typically I'll find a lot of the flavor even towards the whole of my mouth. This is a lot of it is settling in the front of my tongue.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good call out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
Very
it
tasty.
is very much the
Forward.
forward half of your
forward half,
tongue and
yeah.
mouth. Yeah, that's a good call out. So the Cohiba Lancero has a long, long history. It was Cohiba was founded formally in 1966 with 3 sizes: the Liguito 1, 2, and 3. This is obviously the Liguito number 1. We've talked about the Liguito number 2 on some other episodes, which is a little bit smaller. Same with the 3, but this is the hallmark of classic Cohiba. Came out 34 years, even before the Cohiba Robusto, 30 some odd years before the Siglo line, and probably 50 years, or 60 years even before the Behique line. So, this has been around a lot longer than the cigars that people talk about today for Cohiba, which is mainly Behique and Siglo. So Fidel founded this brand. I think we talked about this when we did Cohiba, when we did the Siglo too, but we can just rehash it real quick. His bodyguard was smoking a cigar that a roller had rolled for him, and Fidel said, "What is that? It smells amazing." Tried it, and founded Cohiba, which in its early years, many of its early years, from 1966 to 1982, it was produced a few thousand boxes a year for Fidel, his cronies, and diplomatic gifts, and that's it.
I'll tell you, it's not one for major combustion, but the aroma is delicious on this smoke. Really very nice.
It really complements the flavor.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, I'm just sitting here dumbfounded and a little bit sad because I've pursued fundies. We all have.
Oh yeah.
And we've got a good amount of them. I have none of these, and this is so far definitely better than any fundy I've had.
I think that
within this age period.
I think this cigar wipes the floor with fundies, which, like you're saying, I never used to say. But the last 10 fundies I've had out of various boxes and ages, including the one we did on the podcast, have all been lackluster for me. And maybe my palate's changed, or my perception or my expectation of those cigars has changed, but so be it. Go ahead.
I would like to buy them from you at the 2018
Yes.
prices.
No way.
Discounted number.
I'm gonna fire sale those. I'm gonna buy a car. So this comes in a beautiful dress box of 25 cigars, which is obviously classic, a beautiful varnished box. And it's come, in 10 different varieties. Obviously, since 1964, 1966, it's come in a ton of different varieties of packaging, including 5 cardboard packs of 5, a display box of 25 cigars, which is classic, cardboard packs of 3, varnished box in cellophane, which is cool. So these used to come wrapped in cellophane.
Wow, that's good to know, because if I saw someone with that, I
It'd
would
be fake.
immediately dismiss it as a fake cigar.
That's true.
And this is going to bum me
Yeah,
out.
as long as it doesn't have a glass top.
Exactly.
Yes.
Stay away from the glass tops. This one's going to bum us out. We can all say rest in peace to the varnished Boyd Nature box of 50 cigars. These used to come in 50 caps.
Well, I've
Wow.
never seen that. I've never
What
seen
a
that.
decadent
Can you
treat
imagine?
that would be. Oh.
So that was discontinued even before Habanos came into the picture. That's before 2000.
If you're a listener and you have that, please send us a photo. You're probably a grand lizard. That is something else.
And then there's a couple other configurations in cellophane. But yeah, so right now you can only get these in the varnished Boyd Nature box of 25 cigars.
Yep.
So
Amazing.
Amazing, right?
Someone's doing the Bam Bam shake
I'm
over there.
wagging my tail like Bam Bam right now. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, Giz has been so passionate about Cohiba within the last year, and I have been trying to find a way to get where you are and appreciate what you're appreciating, and I have
What
not
did I
been
tell
able
you?
to. But this is the one stick
Oh,
that I will say.
when we do the
has-
Esplendido, that'll be the second one.
All right, the
That'll
young
be the second
Esplen, but perfect example.
The young
That
one's
had
not great.
Probably the same age as this, right?
But you
21.
can't listen. You can't start that journey. You can't start the Esplendido journey with the 2014. That's ridiculous.
So you made me suffer a little first.
Exactly.
With the 21. All right,
Exactly.
fair
Welcome
enough.
to the journey.
Fair enough.
I'm going to make a definitive statement. I am a full-on 100% Cohiba slut.
Yeah, we know that.
Full-on Cohiba slut. I'd like to make it known. I can't get enough Cohiba Lanceros and Esplendidos.
How
Not
many Lanceros do you have?
I don't have a ton. I have a box and a half,
Okay.
including
Nice.
the 6, 7 that I brought
Very
with us
nice.
tonight. So,
All right. We need to work on cornering the Cohiba
Yeah, we need to
Lancero
get some
market
Lanceros.
before Giz clears everything out.
We're all in.
Before this pod ends,
We're all in.
Bin.
they don't really come up that much. I mean, it's hard,
No.
And the way the price is right now, I mean, these are going for $100 a stick. So you're looking at $2,400 to $2,400 a box.
that's crazy.
It's a
man.
lot, yeah.
That's a lot of money. That's a
a lot.
mortgage payment.
You know, the first time we were in Cuba, I had the Cohiba Robusto, a bunch of them. I happened to like them a lot. They were young in Cuba, so they were over humidified. But I'll tell you, there wasn't one that I didn't like. So if I get my hands on a box of those, even young, I'll age them a year and I'll start going into that box.
But you also got into Lanceros in November.
Oh,
You had that Cohiba Lancero.
That was the first. That was really probably my second Cohiba that I've ever had in my life.
And dude, he freaked out.
I freaked out,
Like you were freaking out.
and I regret not buying that box.
Yep. I told you
To
to.
this day, I still think about not buying that box. It's a big, big mistake that I made.
And you said
Big.
they were 25 a stick
They
there?
were
That's incredible.
Dude, we got Sir Winston's in November for
For
$20
$22.
or
Oh
$20.
my
$20.
God.
Yeah, but we didn't see them this time.
No,
No,
we did
they're
not.
gone.
Yeah.
They smartened
They're
up.
gone.
Well, that's also, we went right after the festival. So we
Yeah.
know half those guys cleared out
Yeah,
anything like that.
yeah. It was really an elegant experience. The first time I had the cigar in Cuba.
I
Where were we?
understand it now.
Where were we?
I think we were at either Cohiba Atmosphere or Malia Cohiba.
Malia Cohiba.
I
That's
think
where
that's
we were.
where it was.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Great time.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I can easily say in the last 10 years, this is the best Cohiba I've had.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It
I'm
is.
blown away.
It
I'm
is
so happy to hear
so-
that. I've been very kind of cautiously optimistic about bringing this cigar into the room to smoke with you guys.
Yeah.
I've really, I've just sat on them. I've had them for quite some time. But I've been nervous because as we talked about it 2 weeks ago in the Leguito episode, you really don't know when you get a box, even if it's $2,500, you don't know the quality of those 25 cigars because
Or if
they're color
real.
matched.
Or
Well,
if they're real.
real authenticity, sure. But let's assume that you know they're real.
Yeah.
You may have 20 different rollers that have rolled those cigars that they're in the same box just because they match in color of the wrapper, which doesn't directly mean that each of those cigars is going to be consistent, obviously. So you just never know.
But on the other hand, like after the trip, I can say that these guys are really focused on quality for a change.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Especially at Leguito.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so this is really, really fantastic, and I'm glad you guys are joining.
Of course.
So coming off 2 weeks ago, our discussion of our visit to El Leguito and our amazing time that we had there. We were also fortunate during the week to go visit La Corona, which is, if we called El Leguito the artisan hub of Cuban cigars, La Corona is the mothership factory,
The volume
volume and production.
producer. Yeah.
That is a
of
It's an assembly line.
Yeah, multiple marcas.
Yeah, they make a ton of. I think they make every marca there almost.
It's like the Amazon of Cuban cigars.
Yeah, I mean, literally.
Yeah, there were 8 marcas on the wall when we were in a conference room.
They roll almost everything. Everything, even Cohibas.
Yeah, they had Siglo 2s when we were there.
A few in there, yeah. Coabas, they'll do.
I thought Cohiba was only rolled at El
Going
Liquido.
to be. It's not yet. It's going to be. They're working on transitioning
In
it
the
all
past,
to.
it has been rolled at other factories.
That was actually an interesting point of reference that we learned, that they're going to try to get all of their Cohiba Vitolas in one location, right back at
That makes sense.
home base.
Then when they do that, they can justify it'll be 200.
Oh, exactly right.
Because they're only rolled in one place.
In small rooms.
That's right. With air conditioning.
So Corona, compared to Laguito, which has a fraction of production staff, team, and torcedores, La Corona has hundreds of rollers on the floor at any given time. Certainly, it's recovered now after COVID, but there's so many other parts and moving pieces to the factory that I think, like we did with Laguito 2 weeks ago, I think we should just kind of walk the listener through the tour that we did. And take it all the way from the basement where we started, all the way up to the top floor where they're putting them in the boxes.
Yeah, we should actually talk about the building.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's
just when you walk in,
that's a post-Soviet Union style structure, all concrete, and it's very it's got a machine-like quality from the street. So when you walk in, it's a true factory.
And it's several stories.
Yeah.
I mean, like at El Liquido, most things are pretty flat, like 1 or 2 stories. Like this thing's got
3.5 stories.
Okay.
If I remember.
It looks even bigger, honestly, outside.
The mass of
it does look bigger than that outside.
Yeah. Outside, it looks like a 5-story building.
Yeah.
I must say it's not ADA compliant.
Oh, no.
There's no
a lot of stairs.
Well, ADA doesn't exist there. ADA what?
Do they have building code there, Bam?
No. Wow. We talked about that the first year. Jeez.
Lots of stairs.
Lots of stairs. So we started in the basement where they actually bring the tobacco into the building and, start sorting it and, opening up the bales and start preparing it for distribution throughout the factory.
Do you remember that room we walked in down there? The
intoxicating smell.
Oh my God,
dude!
I want a car freshener scent just like it. It was incredible.
I'm just gonna hang a tobacco leaf.
No. I like that idea. That's a great business idea, dude.
The lizard car freshener?
Yeah.
As we discussed, we don't even need to do it. I want to help the Cuban people do it.
All right, for the listeners, everything we say has a copyright on
it. We talked about, how inventive the Cuban people are. I want to make sure next time we go, we suggest this idea, and hopefully we come back and they figured out a way to make some car fresheners for us with little lizards on them.
Yeah, so we started downstairs, and then we made our way upstairs to the sorting room, where there were a ton of women at various standing tables separating the leaves for the various types of leaves to then be moved out. And that room was lively and energetic.
It was full of full of workers there.
Yeah.
Full of workers.
Yeah. Go back to where they had the tobacco leaves. We saw barrels there too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess for fermentation.
Yeah, fermentation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar to
Laguito.
Yeah. So I just forgot to ask. Whether they were also from the U.S., like bourbon barrels or not.
It's a good question.
It sounds like they had to be because their most recent journey would have been to make rum in Cuba, but it sounds like the origin of all of these basically was like an American oak barrel that then went to Europe and then came into Cuba.
Right.
But in terms of first impressions, I think El Liquido was like a 5-star hotel, whereas this was more like a motel.
Mess, a hotel for the masses.
It's like an assembly line.
Yeah.
It's like a manufacturing facility.
Oh yeah.
Certainly, there was nothing pretty about it.
No.
Like you said, Bam, it's just all cement.
Yeah, but it was compelling to walk through that building.
Yeah. Just to see the amount of people in there, the amount of hands touching this tobacco. It's pretty
and if you compare it to the Laguito, the tour, and where they separated the leaves, it was very mannered at the Palace of Cigars, whereas opposed to La Corona, there were maybe 12 women, and at Laguito, maybe there were 8, and they were separated, and everything was neatly organized. At La Corona is a little looser, a little informal.
Definitely.
But in a very good way, though. They get their work done.
Absolutely.
But more lively. I think El Liquido was more sophisticated. This was very lively. I
Yeah, I
thought.
mean,
Yeah.
to Giz's point, when we went in that room where the women were sorting, I feel like we were all trying to be very quiet, very respectful, and they like wanted to hear from us. Like they wanted to chat. They were like, "Whoa, whoa!" We were about to
Americano,
walk out.
Americano.
Yeah, they're like yelling out,
Take us to New York.
Yeah, it was so they just wanted to chat and have a fun time. It was cool to see.
Yeah, and a point I want to make to the listener is we were not there during festival week. We were the only visitors in that factory at the time we were there, so it's not like they had an expectation that we were coming.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. But we really got the raw deal,
Yeah.
kind of like we did at Laguito. So we, after the sorting room, where we had a fun time with the ladies in there, where they were separating out all the leaves that were coming in, and they had scales too. They were weighing the tobacco, to make sure that they're distributing the right amount of each leaf to the torsadors. And then we went across the hall, and we went into the destemming room, which, like you talked about, Bam, at Laguito,
Yeah.
where they take the full leaf and they destem the middle of it.
Mhm.
They save that leaf to be sold
Right.
back to the farmers later,
Right.
and then they use those 2 leaves for whatever the application is going to be for each of them.
The process at La Corona was much, much faster than what we saw at El Ejido. There was just higher paced, faster paced.
It was cool. I mean, you're
Yeah.
just sitting there and like there's
It's-
so many more people all doing the same thing at one time. I mean, it just feels
Dude.
like you're watching some kind of video.
It's
of-
an art watching them take that stem out without destroying the delicate leaf. It's amazing.
But it also felt like one big happy family
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
Which is
Well, that's a testament to the director.
The rollers were happy.
Happy.
Yeah.
They were jovial. They were conversing with each other. They were talking to us.
Yep.
They're walking around.
The energy
it
levels
seemed
were
like
very
a
high.
great atmosphere.
It's so funny you say that. I mean, I vividly remember as we're going on the tour and we're going up and down all these stairs, we're saying not being very ADA compliant. But as we're going up at one point, we saw like this whole group of workers sitting on the steps, chatting, having a good time, laughing. And I'll be honest, I mean, just my expectation going in, I mean, you kind of expect in a place like Cuba that some of these places are just
Like they were being
run.
handcuffs. Or something.
I mean,
Yeah.
not that extreme, but not far from it. I mean, honestly, I just expected like you're to sit at that desk, do exactly what you're supposed to, leave and come back and do the same thing tomorrow. And I just couldn't believe how casually they were able to just sit there, have fun, just like we would at an office here.
Mhm.
And that was really cool to see that they were able to enjoy themselves, their company, being their colleagues at work. And it was kind of a special thing.
Sure.
But I think that also speaks to the overall experience of the Cuban people that we found there is that, listen,
content.
these folks don't have great lives.
No.
They don't have a lot. We're not sitting here saying that the Cuban government is doing a great job helping these people. They're doing the exact opposite of that. They're failing their people. It's an absolute shit show there economically. These people have difficulty getting food, clothing, shelter, transportation. It's all bad. However, that doesn't dismiss what we're seeing in that these people are making the very best of it. So what I don't want the listener to walk away from this conversation thinking that we're optimistic about Cuba and the government there.
No,
but
we're not.
But we're very high on the people.
we're very high
course.
on the people and their ability to be resilient.
Right. That's the
That's
key
right.
word.
I think it's
That's
the,
the key
level
word.
of contentment due to lack of any other choice.
Yes.
They've kind of adapted
Yeah.
to this culture that they know that they can't do anything
Sure.
else. So
Sure.
why not be happy in the moment and live in the moment and
And do their best.
make the best of it.
And I
Yeah.
think Bam teed this up, and we'll talk a bit more about this, but a lot of it also stems from the leadership there and kind of
Yes.
how they
Mhm.
institutionalize that this is not a place to come to be miserable every day. This is a place that we want you to feel ownership of what you produce and help provide there. And you see it in all the people that we met, how happy they are to actually show up and work there and proud
Yeah.
to be there.
Yeah,
Sure.
and then during the tour, we were kind of pointed to an area where they told us like these are the trainees. They're
Yeah.
learning how to roll.
Yeah.
And I forget like how long the training.
So the
period
program's
is.
in 9 months. So good tee up there, Rooster. So we leave the stemming room, we walk upstairs, and that's the floor of torsadors. That's where they all are. There's hundreds and hundreds of torsadors rolling, versus some of the pictures that we certainly saw during COVID, and you might have seen, listeners out there. There were really no empty benches. It was a full house.
Sure.
Maybe there were 20 or 30 empty from folks who had gone home or whatever, had finished what they had to do for the day. But to your point, on the, let's say the top left corner of that floor is where the students were who were being taught in their 9-month program how to successfully roll great cigars.
And what's cool, we didn't see that in our first round
We did not.
back in November. That was really interesting to see.
That was awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I'm like, you're sitting there and like a lot of them are pretty young that you
They
can
are.
see they're doing this. And you're like, this is the future of this business, right? I mean, these are literally the people that, 10 years from now are going to be the ones rolling the cigars that we're smoking. So that was just really cool for me, and hearing kind of the vision of how they train them up. I think the director was explaining to us how they all get graded and they need to maintain a certain standard to get through the program and
Right.
ultimately be a torcedor.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not 100% success rate. Some of them fall out due to, it's just not working or stress, or maybe their dexterity's not there, their hand-eye coordination, whatever it may be to roll.
Sure.
And then on the flip side of that, I don't know if you remember what Danilo told us at Leguito. They had a recent graduate who was almost a top-level torcedor coming out of that program.
Young.
He was so talented.
And young.
And I think that, and he was very young.
Yeah.
And I think they put him right into the Bahique Saloon at Leguito to roll coming off the program. So
Wow.
he had a fast track to,
Sure.
So
it's
I
a pretty-
wonder if
pretty
they
hard suc-
if they
pretty,
train them at La
good success.
Corona and maybe graduate them to Leguito.
It's a very good possibility. I'm not sure of that. It's possible.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have that program at Leguito.
Because Leguito did not have that many rollers to begin with. Like we're talking about 300 plus rollers at La Corona, and the
Yeah.
amount of training that happens. So if you learn to roll one cigar, you can roll another one. It
Yep.
shouldn't,
That's true.
So maybe
Yeah.
they do that.
Yeah, they very well may. So yeah, then you're on the floor of the torcedors, and they're kind of grouped together based on the vitolas that they're rolling, based on their experience. The back left corner, let's say, all the way down the hall. So we're talking, how big is this building, Bam, square?
So
on a floor.
on that floor, to me, it looked like it was roughly 45 feet wide and probably 110 feet long, something like that.
About 5,000 square feet.
per floor.
Per floor.
Yeah, that's a sizable building.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
it's what do you think? It's a 30,000 square foot building?
Well, I only remember three
Yeah,
stories, really.
yeah. Well,
There's
that's 6 floors, the 3 floors.
when you're inside. Correct me if I'm wrong. We went 1, 2, 3 stories. I don't know if there's an additional story.
About 15,000 square
four.
feet.
Yeah,
Or
maybe
plus
4
the-
floors
4 with the basement.
at the
right?
cellar, including this. But there wasn't much other action happening other than debaling the.
So it's
tobacco
15 to
down
20,000 square foot
there. I
building.
think so.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the rooftop.
And the rooftop.
That's not a big building for what they're producing. And the volume of cigars that they're making there, that is not a big structure.
Yeah.
At 5 million sticks or units per year, it's not a big building.
So in the back left corner on that same side is where actually the best of the best rollers are, including, some of the folks that we were able to spend some time with. We actually got a demonstration of the top roller there,
Oh, yeah.
who's a good friend of ours now.
Lickety split. He was done with an impeccably rolled cigar.
Dude,
How do you do that?
this guy is like Michael Jordan of rolling cigars. Is he not?
Yes. Yes.
He
I know.
is.
I know you laugh at me when I say that.
Well, they all laughed at you too.
Well, I especially laugh because you hate basketball so much.
That's
So I
true.
do love you using a basketball reference.
Well, he loves MJ.
I do love MJ. I love MJ's story, but yeah, it's amazing to see some of the folks that just what they're able to do with a couple tobacco leaves and some talented hands. It's really incredible what they're able to
Oh,
produce.
that's the other thing we didn't mention. So in that room, when you walk in on the right side, the burgundy shutters where they hand out what
Oh,
they're going to
yes.
be rolling. We should talk about that.
So yeah, so the way that I think we talked about this briefly in the
We
Leguito
did,
episode. Obviously, it's scaled up here at Corona, but so when the torcedors walk in, I think they get them 2 or 3 times a day, depending on how many cigars they're rolling. But they walk up to a window, and they're handed the bundle of tobacco that they're to use to make the cigars they need to every day. And the process is actually semi or completely anonymous, in that they don't know who's handing them the tobacco from the other side, so they can't grease these people before or after work. It's they do that so that there's
Anonymity.
anonymity.
Yeah,
So you're not getting preferential treatment
Right.
in the distribution of tobacco.
And it's like, for the listener, if you would imagine like a drive-through window, but you couldn't see the person's face that's actually
That's a
handing
good
you
way
the
to put
food.
it.
Yeah.
That's like literally what it looks like. There's just this window, just enough to put their arms through, hand them what they need to, but you don't actually see who's giving you what or what you're getting.
Yeah. We saw that in action, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. We were actually there when a bunch of torcedores, I don't know if it was right after lunch.
No, they were going up to the window.
They're going up to the window. There were a lot of them there going up to get tobacco. And
Cool.
and somebody from our group, I don't remember who it was, actually walked up to get tobacco, made a joke of it. It was pretty funny. But
But what's interesting is that the rollers have no idea what brand they're rolling.
no
They
idea.
have no idea whether it's a punch or a Cuaba.
Yeah.
They're just given a formula, roll the cigar.
Mhm.
If you're rolling a Salomon, this is how many tobacco leaves you need. This is what you're doing. And then it goes and then it gets color, separated by color and then banded eventually.
Not to
boxed.
jump ahead, but the number of vitolas that are produced in that factory from those beautiful, elegant little cigars, like those little Cohiba, unusual shape, all the way to the Robustos and the Churchills, it's incredible. The variety of vitolas that they're rolling. And one torcedor going through several different vitolas, that's true skill.
Well,
True skill.
I think it's also encouraging. I mean, I would never have expected that to be the case, that they have no idea really what they're rolling every time.
Yeah.
And the fact that that is the case, it's very encouraging when you think about, like, we have these preconceived notions about certain brands. Like, certain brands we think are very high quality, other brands we probably think are low quality. And based on the system, how they actually produce these, there's not a meaningful difference in the rolling of a Partagas or an Upman at La Corona or a Cohiba or a punch or something else there. And that there's something nice about that, if you don't like one of those cigars, it's because you don't like that blend.
It's a great point.
But it's not because it's rolled in an inferior way, as if like there are only rollers that roll Cohiba versus Partagas versus something else. And that challenged everything I would have expected.
This what he just said really pulls down the curtain on the vitolas and the brands, right? And even in this room, we have preconceived notions of what a high quality cigar is and what a low quality cigar is. That's out the window now.
Well,
it truly is.
I think your point is
It's the taste. It's personal
it's all
taste.
about palate.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not about a quality in one brand versus another.
Yeah.
The only thing I think that's a difference maker that we need to point out is that corner that we're talking about where the best rollers are, they are given the special stuff.
Yeah,
They're rolling the Salomons.
They're rolling. Well, no, like Alex is,
shapes, 109s.
Alex is rolling, regional and limited releases,
Right.
109s. They do know they're giving those
That's
rollers
fair.
the
I mean
specific
more
stuff.
for standard production.
Most standard
stuff.
production.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's no discerning
It's true.
difference in quality in roll.
But it's the same tobacco going into every single cigar.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they have different tobacco, like kind of like from different farms going into different brands.
I think there's some of that. I do think there's some of that.
There must be, because what you're getting in a Cohiba, you're getting, I mean, I'm not getting anything like that in any other cigar. Not that that's a great cigar. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's bad or not.
But Cohiba for sure has,
Well, leaving
preferential
Cohiba
treatment
alone
when they're
because
getting
it's Lagido. It's a separate factory.
Sure.
They could have access to tobacco from a certain specific farm. So,
Yeah.
and also the fact that, they're rolling.
They're
also rolling certain brands because that's what the orders that are coming in for.
This is true. They're also rolling regionals in that cigar.
They are.
In that factory, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff comes out of Corona.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah. And no shortage of boxes right now.
Yeah, so when
I
Bam
mean,
and I came back in
unlike-
November, that's a good point. When we came back in November, there was a shortage of packing supplies where they had a lot of cigars ready to be packed and shipped out. And that's not the case anymore.
No.
They have plenty of all of it.
We kind of ended the tour, didn't we, in that craft room, let's call it?
Yeah.
Right? It was
Yeah, so
beautiful to see how they built the boxes and labeled them. It's really stunning.
That was awesome.
that's
That
That was
amazing.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
And all natural stuff.
adhesives were all natural.
Yeah.
The craft in creating the box was truly elegant. The process in which they go through.
I was honestly surprised. I just, for some reason, assumed that they received the boxes already made and had all the emblems and things that are supposed to be on there. I didn't realize that at the factory that all this is being rolled, they actually have people like literally just with a wooden, box that they have to adhere all these different decals and things to make the art of the
Labels
box.
are all centered, beautifully cut. They have complete command on that chain of custody from creating the cigar to the box and getting it out.
But I don't think all the boxes are physically made in the factory. I think they get them from overseas too. They mentioned.
I think some of the higher end boxes, like the boxes that let's
Varnished
say,
boxes.
varnished boxes that the Cohiba Lancero comes in, or the Esplendido, or the Sir Winston. Those boxes are certainly coming from overseas, but most of the regular production stuff, I mean, even some of the, the Anahados the Senator had before we started this podcast today from H. Upman that we did a few weeks ago. That box was made in that factory at Upman.
I think that's
by hand.
That's a varnished box.
So I don't know. It's a cardboard box.
It's a dress box.
I think Rooster's making a good point.
I'm telling you, I just opened it. But that's the thing. Like any dress box they make there easily.
And they make the
I'm thinking of the Propios box. Yeah.
Well, they don't actually build. I don't think they build the actual box in the factory. Those are made elsewhere, and I think they're brought to the factory. Yeah. It's the labeling and the artwork application and adhesive. That's all done in the factory.
That's right.
No doubt about it.
All right, let's pause here on our Corona experience, and let's talk about this experience we're having tonight, boys. We're a little bit under halfway through here.
Yeah.
On the Cohiba Lancero.
You're ahead of me.
Talk to me.
Dude, the retrohale on this, I get a beautiful salty twang for me.
There is not an ounce of freshness or harshness coming through this stick. I don't know how at 2021 this is smoking this way.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Yeah. Can I get, you guys usually give me shit when a cigar doesn't go well, that my humidor is not correct.
Can you say that again, please? No, I'm talking to him. It's fantastic. We got to coin that. I like that.
Yeah, this is performing beautifully tonight.
Yeah. For me, the notes have stayed consistent, but I'm getting a nice salty twang as I'm getting toward the center of this guy.
Picked up a little bit in strength.
Maybe a bit.
But the sweetness is still the consistent note that it really soothes all of those.
Sure.
Yeah. This is dessert.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the best part of this cigar, we talk so much every time we're reviewing a stick about where would you slot this in? How versatile is the smoke?
Anytime.
That's
Anywhere.
the thing. That's what I'm most excited about with this cigar. I would like this in the morning with a coffee. Mm-hmm. I'd have this in the afternoon, and I'm enjoying it equally in the evening while we're recording this. There's utility at every point.
It's safe to say the best Cubans are the Cubans you can smoke at any time of the day.
I agree with that.
It's proving to be the case, really.
And most are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Think about it.
This is true. Not all, but most.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about this. We've done so many Lanceros at this point in this block of Lanceros. It's funny that we're actually kind of coming, not to the end, but we're certainly later in the journey here with the one that started it all.
Oh, yeah.
The Cohiba Lancero started this whole thing. We've done a lot of them so far.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm glad this is the experience because, we reviewed so many New World Lanceros that have really surprised us, that have scored very high. And when I think of the number of Cuban Lanceros, I mean, it's not like there's a ton to begin with, but we haven't had that same level of surprise or excitement. So it's nice to see a Cuban Lancero really surprise and even over deliver. I mean, this is exceeding my expectations. Sure. I can't say that we've had like a Fundy I expect to be outstanding. And I think we were all pretty happy with the Fundy that we had. I wasn't sure what to expect here. And with a lot of the New Worlds, we've been, really unsure of what we would get out of it and been really surprised. So it's nice to see
also
this.
When you smoke $100 Lancero, you expected it to be, a pretty good stick. So in the New World stick, when you light up a Lancero that you might not even know the price, but you're not expecting it to be a very pricey stick. And then you're surprised by how well it performed and what kind of flavors you get for like a sub $10 stick.
We've had plenty of those experiences.
It blows you away.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
This is my one hang up with Cohiba, right? Because the sad thing is at $100 a stick, whenever I smoke a young Cohiba, I don't expect it to be great.
No.
And that's a problem, right? Like you should not spend $100 on a cigar and be sitting there saying, I don't think this is going to be anything great for at least another 5 years. When you can buy a Partagas or an Upman or an Oyo or really anything in within just a couple years, be very satisfied with it. So that's always been my hang up. But for me, especially Giz trying to take me on this Cohiba journey to get him closer to where he is, giving me an Esplendido, that's also got to be what, like 100 now, like something crazy a stick.
At least.
With roughly the same amount of age and me being very underwhelmed with that. I came in expecting to be underwhelmed by this cigar, and I am not only satisfied, but this is one of the best Lanceros I've ever had.
Absolutely.
If not the best.
So would you pay $100 for this?
No.
Yeah.
But would I pay like top dollar for this? Would I pay 50, maybe even $60?
Sure.
And for anyone who's ever listened to me talk about price on the podcast, I fundamentally don't think any cigar should be more than $40. When I think of like the value I've gotten out of sticks that are, $15, $20, $30, $40 at the absolute most, I don't need to pay any more than that to have an outstanding experience. Like some of my favorite cigars all fall under $40. So for me to say I would actually, maybe I'd pay 50 or 60, for me, that's saying a lot. And I say that because this is the most, I love dessert. Like Puba, if he were sitting here, would be probably over the moon smoking
I think he'd
this.
be gushing over the cigar.
But
There's
I
no
say
doubt
that
about it.
because he and I have very similar palates, and we chase dessert-like flavors,
Sure.
and this is dessert. This is the definition of a dessert smoke. So I would pay top dollar for this.
Yeah.
Not 100, but still a lot.
It's nice to hear.
It is, and this discussion about how much a cigar should be, I think it's up to the individual, very much like the individual palate. What is someone willing to pay for an exclusive, elegant, hard-to-get cigar?
Yeah.
You're going to pay that money.
Yeah, and what bothers me about it, though, is to your point, Senator, is that how Habanos has taken this and has gone so overboard with the pricing where, yeah, maybe at 50, 60 bucks, we'd all be buyers of this cigar, right? But at 100, it's just not something you can reach for very often unless you're just, you have bongo bucks, but it's just not a reasonable thing to do, especially to Rooster's point, and what we've experienced on this podcast is how many of these $10, $12, $14 New World cigars, Lanceros, have delivered amazing experiences.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of tough, right? Because I think the price differential doesn't justify for the marginal difference in flavor. And I think obviously it depends on the individual. Absolutely. But having said that, I'll tell you, it's one of the few cigars I've just let and the smoke just come over my face.
Yeah, it's velvety.
It's very nice.
Oh, yeah.
Great aroma.
It's truly a celebratory cigar.
Yeah, and
No doubt about it.
I find it to be, I guess to your point, Pagoda, I find it to be a very relaxing smoke. Like my heart rate goes down. It feels good in the hand. Like I feel very elegant. It feels very elegant to smoke. And it's nice, the aroma in your face, the smoking, it just feels really good.
Yeah.
Really enjoy it. All right, so let's talk about the pairing, boys.
Oh, yes.
Senator can tee this up. He picked this wine for us at El Cocinero on the final night of our trip. So talk to us. What is this?
Yeah, so as you might expect in Cuba, it's not like there's tremendous wine selection. They're able to import everything from everywhere. It's relatively limited, but to their credit, they're usually picking, inexpensive bottles that are supremely drinkable, and some even very enjoyable. And I think this ended up being one of those for us. So this is Marques de Casa Concha, Cabernet Sauvignon. The vintage we had in Havana was 2018. This is 2019. The 18 vintage is pretty much run out. So this was the oldest we could find. But it's a wine from Chile, and it's, just great. It's full-bodied, but velvety and smooth.
Yeah.
Supple.
Pairs beautifully with this Cohiba.
It does.
It really
and that's
does.
the thing. Like a lot of these Chilean reds, there's not this aggressive quality that you get out of some, let's say, Napa cabs that just need time to smooth out some of that aggression, which eventually builds into tremendous flavor, but starts with a little bit of a punch. And this only being a 2019 bottle, it's so velvety and smooth, which pairs with just how creamy and smooth this cigar is. So I'm glad this worked out, but it seemed like a lot of the guys liked this when we had it.
Oh, it's extraordinarily drinkable.
How much was this again? I think when we got it here in the States, what was it, 16, 18 bucks?
Like 18 bucks.
That's
Yeah,
ridiculously
very
cheap for
drinkable
this.
bottle.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing. Like when you're at a restaurant, a lot of the time, especially in the US, right? Like you look on a restaurant, a wine list, and every wine out of Napa is like at least $100 a bottle at a lot of these places, right? The markup is crazy. You then go to these other countries, you look at Chile, you look at Argentina, you look at Spain, and that's where you get a ton of value, where they don't mark them up as aggressively because people don't pursue them as much because they don't know as much about them. And so it's nice, like traveling to random places like Havana and kind of being forced. You don't literally, you can count on one hand the number of California wines that are on a wine list in Cuba.
They had two?
Literally. That's it.
I wonder why.
And it's like everything else is from Spain, Argentina, Chile. And it's nice because it forces you to, at least for me, get a little bit out of my comfort zone, and you find something that's such a great value like this. And I think this definitely competes for best sub $20 cab.
I find it to be very balanced. It's not trying too hard to be too minerally, too earthy, or too sweet. It's pretty elegant and sophisticated for what it is, for the cost.
And I like the dryness of it.
It is a bit dry.
Yeah,
I like that.
And I happen to love that.
I like that with a cigar.
Sure.
You know, I think when you get something that's a little too
Fruit forward.
Right.
it's a little too much going on, trying a little too hard, even with a steak too. You know, it can throw your balance off when you're enjoying a great cigar, especially $100 cigar. We're having an $18 wine with a $100 cigar.
And it's holding up.
And it's holding up. And
is.
it's not, you know, it's a lot of the cheaper wines. I mean, they really do try too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm glad you said that it's got a bit of dryness to it, because you've probably heard me say this, but I love wines that are a little dry, not aggressively dry, not bone dry like some Bordeaux's are. But, you know, a wine like this, it starts like the front of your palate as fruit forward, but it finishes dry.
Yeah.
And that's that balance Bam's talking
Absolutely.
about, which I think makes this special, because usually you have to pay way more than $20 to achieve that. Wines that have that quality about them, a value is usually at $40. And where you really find a lot of them are at $50, $60 plus dollars. So to find a wine with that level of balance at $20 is crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, incredible. All right, so back to Corona. So we've been through the Torcedor floor, where we walked around and saw the Torcedors rolling. We we didn't talk about this. We went into the storage room, the cold room.
I mentioned that earlier, but
there were, how many cigars did they say that were in there when we were there? Was it
I thought it was
a couple million, I thought.
in that room?
Before we were in there or after we left? I'm just kidding.
That's funny.
What embargo?
Was it? I didn't hear that number. I thought it was 400,000, 450,000 cigars in that one room.
I don't remember what the number was. It was a lot,
Yeah.
but they had.
It was. I'm sorry. Beautifully organized. You really can identify, if you know your cigars, you can kind of look. I know what that is. I know what that is. That's a cool experience without the band on them.
And
Very
they're all
cool.
unbanded until they're
Yeah.
ready to be put in the box.
Yeah.
So they live in that cold room,
Oh, yeah.
until they're ready to be boxed.
That was another room, the aroma.
Dude.
It was like there was air movement in there with it being that cold room, and oh my goodness.
So when you guys were in the group near the door, I walked through the path. Someone was mirroring me, if you noticed.
Oh yeah, because they don't want you grabbing stuff.
No.
Because a lot of people are
Very
fortunate to go
careful.
on these tours.
Yeah.
And as we talked about before, they want to take and walk out of there with handfuls of stuff. And it's just like, that's a good way to get yourself never invited back.
Oh, yeah.
Although the lady out there was very friendly. And she was
very
offering us-
kind.
yeah,
She's
was.
very kind. Yeah, very kind. So then we went upstairs to the room where they made the boxes. We went through the banding room, where they actually are banding all of the cigars and prepping them for boxing. Went through the boxing room, like we said.
Yep.
And then we saw where they actually keep the master cases that are ready to be moved to Habanos with the Habanos seals on them. And there was something I found really interesting. And do you remember, I actually called the manager of the room over.
The date.
Because there were half Coronas. Specifically, I saw a box of half Coronas.
Upmans.
Of Upman half Coronas from 2021. And I was confused, like, why are these still here? Why are these not in the distribution chain? Why are the shelves empty in Spain and in Europe and in Australia? Why are these sitting here? And what they said is they only roll a certain amount of them at a certain time during the year, and they hold them until they're called for by Habanos.
It's amazing.
So that does lend me to believe that Habanos is a little bit full of shit.
Oh, yeah. They're controlling their global inventory, right?
And they're trying to keep the cigars scarce.
Well,
I really believe that.
This also explains, it's been very baffling to me how you walk in certain retailers and you see a box that's got a few years of age on it. And you're like, if you're moving inventory all the time, how do you have a 2020 box of something that you're going to convince me that's been sitting there for 3, even 2 years? That would explain it. And I didn't understand that for so long until you're hearing that they're literally just holding stuff with age sometimes because supposedly it hasn't been called for, and then the retailer's getting it later.
It was pretty amazing. And then seeing all the master crates there. I mean, I've never seen the master crates. That was the first time we were in that room, Ben.
It's
We weren't in
impressive.
that room.
It's
before.
impressive.
I wanted to load up a plane and just fly us all back. Oh my goodness.
So that concluded our tour. And then we head down. We went back downstairs all the way down to the first floor, and we were very fortunate to be invited to sit and have coffee and a cigar with the director of the factory, Osmar.
The man,
great guy. Really enjoyed the time with him, and we had some wonderful conversation with him.
Yeah,
we did. I mean, what a guy! We obviously talked about our experience at El Ejido and meeting Danilo, who's the production manager there, and Oscar, who is the director general, and it's so funny. You remember, and we went there first, right? El Ejido. And you remember talking to Danilo and so amazed by his knowledge of cigars in this business, despite how short of an amount of time he's actually been in it. And he very readily says, I learned everything I know from Osmar, who's at La Corona. And so how surreal it was then to fast forward like a couple days and we're sitting in a room with Osmar, and I was blown away by all the cigar knowledge that Danilo shared with us. And this is the guy who really kind of started it all. And it sounds like is just viewed as, I think Gizmo has said that the Jefe del Jefes, like he's had such an imprint on.
He's the godfather of cigar production and quality. And the ability that he has to keep everyone happy in these compounds, it's astounding.
So I think, again, the thing, I want to temper our enthusiasm for the listener in this way. Again, I want to say it because we are not celebrating Tabacuba. We're not celebrating Habanos. We're not celebrating the Cuban government. Part of the using our pseudonyms on this podcast is we don't want them to figure out who we are, so we can't go back.
Well, you're also being very diplomatic because they're not good to their people.
They're not good to their people. They're horrible to their people. But on a micro level, what we can see, because they have no reason to impress us. They don't give a shit about a podcast. They don't even know what a podcast is, probably, because it's not accessible to them.
They don't we
care.
had to describe it as a radio show.
Yeah, like they don't
That's the
care.
only way they understood.
They're not trying to impress us and make us feel some sort of distorted view of what they're doing. Really, it comes down to, I think, that they are trying to develop as best they can a family atmosphere to try to treat their people well. The people who are manufacturing these cigars, they're trying to treat them well. Because like Osmar said in so many words, happy people make good cigars.
Yeah.
And I think that at his time in Leguito and his time in the other factories, I think he's worked at all the major factories, he said, except I don't remember if it was Upman or Partagas that he hadn't worked at, but he's run all these factories. And he spent 10 years at Leguito, and now he's been at Corona for 4 or 5, I believe. And he's trying to...
Which even that is so fascinating, right? I mean, I was sitting there when we first learned that, and you think of like, Leguito is like the Mecca. Like if you are the director general there, that's probably as good as it gets. Like that's the mountaintop for that job. And I was so confused. Well, why would he be moved to La Corona? Nothing against La Corona, but like it's hard to beat that job. And it was so cool to hear that he's so good at it. And essentially because they produce so much more at La Corona, his impact could be magnified in such a huge way by him sharing all of his knowledge and instilling his process in his way at the factory that produces more cigars than any.
Yeah, it's got to be like a 5 times the size of the enterprise at La Corona. You mentioned the amount of control that you need to have over that. It's astounding.
Yeah, and it also makes sense that he's been there like 4 to 5 years, and you see the production quality, getting like much better. Like I remember like 19s, 20, 21, 22s.
That's interesting.
Even
yeah,
the cigars are smoking better. I mean, we're having a 21 lens. I mean, although it wasn't rolled at La Corona, but a lot of the younger stuff is smoking really great. And
we've talked about this.
They've been consistent.
It is.
We haven't really had many draw issues with the newer boxes.
Think about how much better the Monty 2s got.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially since 2018, 2019.
Exactly right.
And a lot of them are made at Corona.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Well, that's what was cool. So Gizmo, during this discussion with Osmar in Gizmo's broken Spanish was...
there's always a jab there, Bam. You hear that?
I heard that.
I'm going to shut his mic off.
No, leave it on. Todo bien. Todo bien.
And so Gizmo was trying to say basically that we as the consumer notice a difference in just the last few years, like Rooster's saying. And it was cool to see Osmar's reaction. It was as if he hadn't really heard that before from an American consumer. And it's got to be really validating. It was just cool for us to be able to share that.
I think he was being very modest.
Yeah.
Very humble.
It's exciting, though, to have that thought of it, of what's happening there. It's really exciting. Gives me goosebumps, honestly.
And mind you, like these guys, producing about 5 million cigars annually.
Yeah.
But considering his vision, where he nearly wants to double it up and go to 9 million by 2030, that's in the next 7 years. This is a guy who knows his stuff and wants to do it right.
I think on a micro level, really, I believe that they're trying to do their best, at least in what we saw in these two factories. I believe that the people in leadership on the ground are trying to do their very best.
Yeah. And on that, because I think it's really important. And I think I've got a very sensitive bullshit meter, and I don't think any of these people we were talking to were bullshitting us. And I say that because what we were hearing is being done there and what the experience is like now, it was crystal clear was not always the experience there. And there was no like dancing around that issue, right? For Osmar to sit there and say, recognize that more needed to be done to support the people that work there so that they can bring their best selves to work every single day and produce good cigars. I mean, that's an acknowledgement that always hasn't been the case.
That's true.
And that he needs that to be the case to do his job and them to do their job. And I remember him saying, and we had a translator, it was very helpful during all this, but he was explaining how when he started there, he had a meeting and went and met with everyone that works at that factory and said, what do you need to get by? Not here's what we're paying you, take it or leave it. What do you need to make ends meet for your family? And he was going to do everything in his power to try to at least fulfill that, if not more. And that's like a huge departure from, I think, how most things in Cuba work, which is this is the way it is, and this is the way you will accept it. There's no negotiation.
What are you going to do about it?
Right.
Yeah.
And that was really powerful.
If you remember the tour to El Ejido, they had crates of eggs distributed throughout the facility. Why?
Yeah.
Because they want to make sure that they had protein to take home for their families. That's a mark of the director.
Yeah, and if let's think about it, if a torcedor is sitting at work all day worrying about feeding their kids,
Of course.
they're not going to be able to focus on their work. That's just a patent truth in any existence. If you're worried about feeding your children, you're not gonna be able to focus at work that day.
Small gestures like that go so far.
I'm gonna try that at my stores tomorrow. If you guys gotta sell $5,000 a day each person, I'll give you guys some eggs.
Hey, listen, that's an example of leadership, but I'll tell you, those Cuban omelets are fantastic.
They are good.
With the hot oil.
Oh.
So Pagoda mentioned that they're trying to increase the production out of Corona over the next, say, 5 to 7 years, correct?
Yeah, 2030.
2030 is the number that they're almost trying to double the production. And what was the number? It's escaping me. They're trying to move up to a certain number of torsos. I think it was 350 or 400 was the number.
From 230 to 300.
That was it. 230 to 300. That's what they're going to try to get to in the next couple of years, and then increase the production.
And these are not the employees; these are the rollers.
Just the rollers. Yeah.
And even just along the lines we're talking about the people, how much of a focus that is there. I mean, I couldn't believe. I remember we're going there and they have this position, the lectura. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, what is this position? And like for anyone in certainly the United States, but many of other countries will relate to this. It's basically like the head of HR. I mean, like that person's job is to make sure that people are happy, they have what they need. And that I was just stunned that in any Cuban business, especially something that obviously has an influence from the government, that there would be such a focus on things like that someone gets paid literally just to make sure people have what they need and can do their job.
And
you know what?
They read the news on a daily basis.
Yeah, so she has a platform on the floor where all the torcedors are, that she has a microphone, and she'll read the bus schedule. She'll talk about the transportation. Certainly, I'm sure that it's very challenging every day. I'm sure that it's very difficult to get these people to and from work. She'll read the news. She'll read, various things to them, so that they're aware. And obviously, prior to the advent of the internet and cell phones, which they all have now, that's where they got their entertainment during the day.
It's so cool. It's almost, this all kind of winds down to the focus to really getting the rollers to focus on one thing, the quality of the work that they're doing.
And
right? It's like an indirect quality control.
Yeah.
To get your thoughts off of your problems, to help you as much as possible to focus on your work. It's amazing.
I think They had a party the night before, right? On Wednesday or something.
We missed it.
Yeah, they had a party for all the employees to go, and
That's right.
I think one of the guys had mentioned he was a little bit hungover.
So we had a wonderful cigar and a wonderful cup of coffee. By the way, even at these random places, we're sitting in a conference room at La Corona. The coffee is
It
unbelievable.
was outstanding.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't drink much coffee.
It was good.
It was excellent.
And the ventilation's horrible.
Oh, the ventilation.
I
so
was
bad.
worried Senator would be bouncing off the walls.
I was on my best behavior with that giant photo of Fidel Castro
Oh, boy.
above Rooster's head.
By the way, that was the earliest we got up during our whole trip to make it to the tour.
Yeah,
It's
what
true.
do we had to be there at 10, right?
Yeah.
Oh my Lord, why?
Oh, my
why?
Lord is right.
But they were talking about that they're going to try and build a place where I think people are going to be allowed to come and smoke and
That's right.
drink.
Yeah, for guests, they're
Oh,
going to have
yes.
like a lounge.
Yeah, so they showed us beautiful interior renderings of a lounge they're going to build at the top floor somewhere. That I
You
can't
know
wait
where I
to
think
see
it is,
that.
Bam? Is I
Yeah.
think it's on the second floor,
Oh yeah,
right next to the sorting room. There's a door right there. I
Cool.
think that's the room it's gonna
Very
be in.
cool.
And I think they're almost done with it.
very
The
cool.
renderings looked really nice.
Yeah.
It's nice that they're spending the money there for the tourists and the government visitors.
Did they use you, Bam?
They did not.
All right. Damn.
So the whole thing's going to come crumbling down in a few years.
They'll use 2x4s to hold up concrete.
So, boys, this Cohiba Lancero is performing beautifully in the second third here. I'm honestly, I've had a few duds out of this box.
Really?
Yeah, because I picked some when I smoked them that I could tell were more densely packed and were probably going to have draw issues, which is a common thing with small ring gauges we've talked about ad nauseum. But I've had some duds out of this box. So for the five of us to be sitting here and none of us experiencing a difficult smoke tonight, especially for $100 a stick,
Yeah.
is a welcome relief.
That's what I was going to say. At $100 a stick, no big deal if a few of them don't smoke.
Oh yeah.
How much did you pay for these?
I think I paid 60 or 70 at the time.
Wow. Good for you.
Yeah.
So
Which by the way, at the time felt like a real gouge. Obviously now in
Not
hindsight,
now,
it's
yeah.
not the case.
did you inspect the foot of every cigar?
Before I brought them tonight, yes, I did.
So you pulled out the ones that you assumed would be
Yeah,
a
so-
challenge.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good thing to talk about for the listener. So,
Yeah, I'm curious about that as well. So did you separate those cigars? You're going to dry box them maybe?
so the ones that I pulled for us tonight, I isolated a couple weeks ago.
Mm.
I put them to the side, and I kind of said these are for the
Where did you
the
keep them?
lizards. I kept them in the box, just separated. I had a little
In your tower.
in the tower.
Okay.
They were in the tower the whole time.
Which shelf on the tower?
Shelf 2.
But you noted earlier that you separated cigars or pulled out cigars that you assumed won't be smoking well or that won't smoke well.
No,
How
I
did-
pulled those. I smoked those in the last few
Okay.
months.
Got it. Yeah.
But I was reaching for cigars that I thought might give me a challenge because I didn't want to bring those here.
Okay.
When we were going to record. So I'm just glad that maybe I got most of those out of the box. But we're talking probably 10-15% of the box was a challenge.
Wow.
3-4 cigars already.
Was this rolled at the Laguito?
Yes, MAR.
Awesome.
Yeah, MAR. I'll go
I
20.
wonder why didn't we do this when we talked about Laguito?
That's a great question, Rooster. I
Yeah,
appreciate
who's
the criticism.
manager here? What the heck?
Gizmo's fired, apparently. The Hefe over here.
Turn Giz's mic off. please.
Honestly, I thought it was a good way to segue the conversation we had 2 weeks ago with a brilliant cigar. I thought it was a way to segue, Corona to Laguito and vice versa. So there you go. That was my thinking.
Thought wrong.
Rooster's right, but both work.
Garcon is fired. Only one bottle.
I didn't know everyone was going to love it so
Oh,
much.
dude. We love that.
This cigar just keeps getting better.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable on the last third.
Yeah, I'm just coming to the last third now. It's really performing great.
I think you and I are at the same point. It's stunning how good this is.
So, Rooster, you've had other
really-
Lanceros. I mean, where does this compare for you?
Have had other Cohiba
You've never had a
Lanceros?
Cohiba Lancero?
Yeah, I have, but a while back. I mean, any other Cohiba I've had, it's different. I distinctly remember a Cohiba Robusto from like 2014, 15 had a little more spice, a little more oomph to it.
Hmm.
The young one wasn't that great, but this is in a different world.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've had an older Lancero though.
I had a 2008, I think I mentioned earlier on the
Mhm.
podcast, and It really mellowed out and chilled out. I think I'm actually preferring this kind of vibe right now over
Yeah.
the 08, but the 08 was a really brilliant cigar.
I had a 2022 in Cuba, and I loved it.
You did.
This is better. Much better.
There you have it, boys.
I mean, it gives you hope that even if you buy fresh Lanceros, if you can get them at a decent price, keep them.
Good luck.
I mean, they'll smoke well.
I think the way you guys should think about it is it's an investment. I think the price has nearly doubled while the market's down like.
I don't know. I don't think it's going above
This-
this.
I'm kidding.
I absolutely think it's
going
going
to come down.
I just want to
point.
say this as the resident watch person here. This is exactly the same type of market where everybody says, look at the price of watches. This is ridiculous. It can't possibly go higher. And you fast forward 5 years from then and people are saying, holy shit, I wish I would have spent 10 or 20 grand or whatever it was at the time for X watch. And it just keeps going up. I do believe this will continue to increase in price. I really do.
Outrageous.
That's crazy.
I mean, I was just reading, there was an article this morning. Oh man, what was it? It was actually talking about another product and then it related it to the cigar market.
Caviar.
Something that young people are starting to spend a lot more money on.
Vapes.
And like a higher end product. And it was comparing it to the cigar market, how there's been an explosion in cigar smoking among younger people, particularly in the US, and how they're starting to want to spend more money, that they view this as like this luxury that's worth spending money on, and how accessible cigar information and content, honestly, podcasts like ours, it's kind of the lens I was reading this through.
Social media as well, I think,
Well,
has
that's
had
the
a big hand in increasing the popularity of cigars today.
Well, that's the thing, and increasing the accessibility of just
Yeah.
information. Like,
Yeah, sure.
so many people they were talking about who maybe were very predisposed to want to enjoy cigars, but didn't know how to smoke one, didn't know how to procure them. All the stuff that we hope to share with the world through what we're doing. And so it was just as I was reading this, and I'm like, wow, I mean, the numbers are exploding among younger adults. And you think about what that's going to mean for the market for this product
Yep.
in 10 years. I mean, to me, it's no question the prices are going to continue to climb.
Well, Habanos also views this that we have in our hand as a Rolex.
Yeah.
But how many Rolexes have you had that don't tell time? Like, are there 10 to 15% of Rolexes that just don't work? You know, kind of like Cohiba Lanceros. You get 10 to 15% of Cohiba Lanceros are not smokable. You know, which is the major criticism of Habanos with their approach here, is that you have a handmade product in that we're smoking, and sometimes they just don't go.
Yeah.
You know, so it doesn't justify something that, you know, they're comparing it to handbags and watches and cars. And
it's true. And I also hate to break it to them. You smoke a cigar
and it's
in
gone.
An hour, it's gone.
It's gone.
That Rolex is going to last generations, and even a handbag is going to last a long time.
So essentially, a box of this is equivalent to a Panerai,
or a Louis Vuitton handbag.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, more like a handbag.
There's no Panerai you can buy.
you
for
can get for
$2,500.
No, you can't.
No, they're like 6,000.
No,
now.
maybe 10, 20 years ago.
Maybe a Seiko.
Seiko.
Or a Rolex with 2 L's. So, wrapping up our visit to La Corona, is there any other takeaways that we didn't hit that kind of resonated with you guys, stuck with you guys?
I think sitting in that conference room, this is the second time for you and I, it was really heartwarming. It was just fantastic. It felt like we were part of what they were doing. They were ingratiating. It was just a very warm experience, I have to say.
I think that they appreciate that we don't ask for anything.
Yeah, of course.
You know, we show up there with, we showed up there with a suitcase full of stuff.
Also the enthusiasm, though. I mean, we have a great enthusiasm for this.
Yeah.
And I think they see that.
And they know that we want to educate.
Sure.
And we show up with a suitcase full of stuff that I gave to the Lectora to give the Torcedores. Yes. Medicine, clothing from Rooster.
Yep.
You know, toys, baseballs. Osmar, the director of La Corona, is a big baseball guy. Very involved in the youth baseball, so we gave him some stuff to give away to his people. Yeah. I mean, it's just like we show up there to give, not to take, and that I think is a message. We're not patting ourselves on the back by sharing that with you listeners. It's, if you do go to Cuba, it's all about giving, and that's where the joy is in it. All of these experiences are great, but what you really, the connections you make with human beings there, and our ability as Americans to do so much with so little, it's really pretty monumental and very impactful. It's at least for me.
And they were very happy to talk to us too. They answered all of our questions
Sure.
because they knew that we were inquisitive and that we do a pod, and then we were there, to learn more about the culture and about the cigars that are being rolled, and about the people rolling them, about the director, the whole history and everything about La Corona. So it was a
Yeah.
fantastic
It's giving us a
tour.
chance to really put this out, where before our trip to Cuba, we had no idea what a factory tour was like, what it was like inside. So it's eye-opening.
Well, building off of what Rooster just said, that was kind of the last point I was going to leave the listener with. I think we talked about this a little bit with El Ejido, and I think we saw where a lot of this stems from, which is Osmar, was just like the willingness to share knowledge and information and be transparent. And Danilo teed that up very much so about how, there have certainly been director generals in the past where that's not really the style. Kind of the old guard in Cuba is, this is what we do it extremely well, and it's not something that we need to share with everybody or talk about, right? That's the secret sauce. And Danilo was so transparent with us. And then to hear from him, I learned everything I know from Osmar, and to sit down with Osmar, and it was like, and his staff, it was like no question was off limits. There was a
Even
willingness
the hard
to
questions,
share.
which
Correct.
Unfortunately, it's not all rosy.
Right. And even what is this tension between the folks who on the ground are actually responsible for producing cigars and the investors who own, Habanos SA and are, there's a huge tension there, obviously.
Yeah, we learned that from Danilo.
It was, there were a lot of conversations, but the biggest shock to me, nothing at any point was off limits. And I think we're all just eternally grateful for how much they were willing to share.
Yeah. And I think, in our future visits, when we go back there, we're just going to be able to double down on this. Having known the people that are there, they know our faces, they know our intent, they know who we are, and they know why we're there. I think that's just going to allow us to keep pulling the layers of this onion back and getting deeper to the root of this thing that we love.
Yeah, I would love to go back and just sit in that room where we sat towards the end of the tour. Like, we don't have to do the tour again.
Yeah.
But just to sit there and spend like half an hour, like an hour, smoke a cigar and have a cup of coffee, and just, we might have other questions.
Sure.
And then,
You know,
of
and
course,
talk.
head to the terrace right after.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe that lounge will be open.
Oh,
by then,
that'd
right?
be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, it was a great visit, great week. And, like we opened this conversation, just as such a contrast from what we experienced at Laquito, But like Senator just said, there was a thread tied between the leadership on the ground, not Tabacuba, not Habanos, on the ground at these factories, where I believe that the people on a very micro level are really trying to do their best. I really believe that.
No, absolutely. And they're focused on making the best cigars they can, and with a huge disconnect with how they're actually brought out to market.
Well said. Very well said. So, boys, we're in the final third here of the Cohiba Lancero.
I can't believe how good this cigar is still.
It keeps getting better.
It
Have
does.
you noticed the ash, the color of the ash on this? It's
Yeah.
super dark.
Yeah, it's like a
like
very dark
charcoal.
gray.
Yeah.
Charcoal, yeah. Yeah, so the intensity's picked up a little bit for me.
A bit.
The smoke is still cool though. It's not the cigar is not heated up for me, which I'm happy about.
No rough edges, but I know what Senator's looking at right now. So the ash color from cigar to cigar, it differs. Mine's getting kind of lighter.
Mine's a light gray, like most Cubans.
Yeah.
Mine's a little
Yeah,
dark.
mine
But
was
we're
dark.
but what truly, I know you don't like this, but we are stacking dimes here. The layering is beautiful.
It is.
Anybody out there playing Bam Bam Bingo?
Okay.
Stacking dimes.
Stacking dimes, baby. God help me.
Sorry, Bam.
Give me patience.
It was great to, I wish I could photograph. I should actually. There's a cloud of smoke right above your head. It's like a halo.
It's a halo.
Yeah.
Wow. It's very fitting.
Is it really?
Well, check the past episodes, ladies and gentlemen.
So we mentioned Ramon Ionis earlier in the podcast when we were talking about other cigars that we smoke. Obviously, we smoke the Ras a lot. We love that cigar. And last time we did the second episode, we did the Laquito episode. we smoked the Ramones
109.
Ionis number 2,
Okay.
which was the EL from 2019, which got a 10.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about this with you guys. So they announced and they released. They've actually released. It's actually in market. I actually saw some in Cuba when we were there. A new regular production size, which is the Ionis number 3, which is 5.5 by 52. So it's kind of a Robusto, a little bit larger than the Ras. And it's going to be a new regular production cigar from Ramon.
Interesting.
Which is nice to see.
Yeah.
I want them to make a torpedo.
Yeah.
I mean, that damn number 2 was so good.
Oh, yeah.
I want them to have a standard production Ramon Ionis number 2. That would be amazing.
Yeah, like just make a pyramid of the same size as the Monty 2 or
that'd be incredible,
or the P2. That would be great. That would be great.
We'll bring it up to Osmar when we're there.
Unfortunately, I think that's a Habanos decision.
He may show you right out the door.
You know what's nice too? That the thing I know that I'm into is that they're pricing it at $19 a cigar.
That's good.
So
very good.
Given what we've talked about with Habanos, it's nice to see a regular production Ramon coming out.
Yeah, that's great.
Under $20 a stick.
The gray market will be 50.
Maybe 80.
He's not wrong.
So one of the other cool things during our discussion with Osmar and his team at La Corona, we were talking about, this was probably when we were in the boxing room where they were like assembling all the boxes. How many cigars are in a box? And right now, I think most of them we purchase are 25 count, in a box, whether it's a dress box or Semi Boy Nature, whatever the case may be. And he was talking about how it used to be the case that the King of Spain, and Spain is, I actually think to this day, they say like more Cuban cigars are sent to Spain than anywhere. There's some like stat like this.
Yeah, I think that came about when Gizmo asked him, why is there a certain times you open a box and there's like a wooden piece
on the lower level,
or cardboard if it's a dress box. Yeah.
On the lower level.
Then that was his answer.
Yeah. So he was saying that the King of Spain had wanted 26 cigars in a box, and then at some point that changed to 25. I think it was like easier to count or something like that, like everything just being
multiples,
25, like to very easily do the math. So they had to add that little cardboard piece if it's in a dress box, or that little piece of wood. And so apparently now, especially as they're having a shortage of boxes, I think both Giz and Bam, your first trip before we all went as a group, were talking about how they apparently have all these cigars on the island. They don't have boxes to get them out,
That's true.
at least allegedly. And if that's the case, it'd be better off for them to try to fit as many cigars per box as possible so that they have to use less boxes. So we were told that there is talk about in the future going back to 26 count boxes, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a big move. Oh, yeah.
It seems like a waste of space to ship out a box with a piece of cardboard or a piece of wood in it instead of another cigar.
It is.
So would a cab become 52?
No, because a cab doesn't have that.
No, it doesn't have that block, but I hope the dress boxes don't get packed even further than they are already.
That's true.
Okay? We don't need that.
Okay.
Please.
So you know what's interesting is they have more cigars on top. There's 13 on top and 12 below.
Yep.
And you would think that it'd be the other way around, because if you put 13 down, the gap between the two cigars would form enough for them to put 12. But it's opposite.
And it's also, it's all about that presentation. They want, when you open that box, all the cigars are color matched, perfectly aligned. All the bands are perfectly aligned. They want you to have that initial whoa moment when you open your box of cigars.
But it tells you that they think about everything. Meaning it is really remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wouldn't mind if they put 26 cigars in a box, but the problem is the price is going to go up.
Yep.
No, I hope the price goes down.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, that's a pipe dream.
Apparently there's some more prices and increases coming, but I haven't gotten solid information on that yet. But I've heard that there's 2 more coming this year. I don't know if that's true, but I guess we'll
Please
see.
don't tell us. Ignorance is a bliss.
No, it ain't.
It's crazy. All right, boys, so we're coming to the end of our evening here. Do you want to do the formal liquor rating on the Marquez wine?
Sure.
Let's do it.
All right. Bam Bam, you're up.
Well, I love this cab for the balance that it has and how sophisticated it is for the price. I'm giving it a 10.
Wow.
Wow.
like Senator said, it is so drinkable. I can go through a bottle in a sitting and really be very comfortable.
Okay.
10.
Pagoda.
I'm at an 8.
Okay.
I think it's very flavorful, very tasty. It's a bit dry.
A bit dry.
Yeah.
He's not a wine drinker.
No, he's not.
Senator, whose head the back of his head just blew off.
He's
It's
gonna
all
have an
over the wall.
aneurysm.
You're going to have to clean the walls because my head is literally about to explode.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't believe he gave this an 8. I can't believe this.
Yeah.
Just by
Oh, my
smelling the
goodness.
glass, I would have given it a 9.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
wow, Jesus.
Well, to each
Well,
his own.
this is making my life a whole lot easier because I've been back and forth between a 9 and a 10.
He's at an 11
I am
just to balance.
definitely
out.
having to give this a 10 to balance this out.
Uh-huh.
And I will feel very good doing it. And I'm in lockstep with Bam in the sense that the hardest bottle of wine to find is a sub $20 bottle of red. It
With
is
that balance.
the single most difficult thing to do in all of wine. You can find a bottle of white easily at that price point. A bottle of red gets really difficult. This drinks better than any wine at its price point. It's a 10.
Okay. So I'm going to give it a 9. I'm right in between you guys. It's not quite a 10 for me. It's not my favorite thing I've ever had. I'm certainly with you on the price point thing, but I've had quite a few bottles of this since we got home because I bought a case of it like Senator did. It's not a 10 for me.
Okay.
It's a 9.
Can I ask
and
you
I'm
a
very
quick question?
comfortable with that.
Of 20 or less
Yeah, exactly.
bottles, what would you prefer to this?
I would definitely take Oberon over this.
Yeah, Oberon.
Oh, wow,
Definitely
I
Oberon.
feel the opposite.
Oh, I do too.
I think this is
Honestly,
better.
I do too.
This
Yeah,
is
I'd
better
take the
than
Oberon over
So
this.
the Oberon's nice. It's a great table wine, but there's a bit more sweetness to this
Right.
than I get here. And it's, again, you got to go back to the balance. When you're balancing the sweetness and a bit of the earth tone and it's not overwhelming in any way, that's a sophisticated bottle of wine.
I'm glad you brought this. That's what I wanted to ask. I
Yeah.
was
So
curious if you
you
were going to say that.
don't prefer the
My-
Oberon over this?
No, I don't.
So let me just say before you give that. So
But I love the Oberon, but I happen to think this is better.
the formal liquor rating on this is a 9.3. So the reason
fair.
why I wanted to say that is I think a 93 for this is actually a perfect score.
It is.
If I were to rate the Oberon,
Okay.
I'd probably give it a 92. If I were to rate this, I'd probably give it a 90 or 91. That's how close they are for me.
Yeah, they're very
But it's a
close.
9. It's a solid 9 for
That's
me.
fair. So I take no, as always, the composite lizard score is always right. I have zero issue with a 93. I think it's perfect and deserving. The thing I do want to talk about, you mentioned that you give a bit of an edge to the Oberon over this. To me, for a listener who's trying to decide between the two, I think that the Oberon lacks legs in the way that this does. I say that as in Oberon is a medium to full bodied cab that, as a result of it not being squarely full, is so easily drinkable. And I would even say you could just guzzle that stuff down. I mean, it's like very easy drinking wine. I don't know that it always holds up really well with food or with something else in the way that why I give this the slight edge is I think this has a bit more structure with delivered in an even much more sophisticated way, in my opinion.
Agreed.
And this to me holds up much better with as far as a steak, as heavy a meal as that, or with something that is, not, even chicken or something not as aggressive as red meat.
Sure.
So for those reasons, I think like if you want a full bodied red that's going to be delivered in a velvety, supple way, this is the bottle. If you want a medium to full bottle that's just going to, be sit out on the deck and just pound a bunch of wine, then Oberon's
a one. Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely pound a lot more Oberon than this. I think for me, what it did was it just really dried my mouth up quite a bit. And I'm not sure why. But,
that's the structure in the wine. I mean,
and after a while, like it's not something I can drink like a lot of over a period of time. And maybe that's why. So I'm not
All
sure.
right, we're going to get you some Yellowtail.
I'm not a wine drinker.
Sorry, I'm so upset with an 8.
So I got to say, this is one of the higher rated wines that we've actually done.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm just looking through the list here. If you guys want to call some wines out that we've done, the Stag's Leap Artemis was an 8.8.
Wow, I'm surprised.
Which I was surprised that the Itter that we did on the John Gibson Memorial episode was a 9.0.
That was a good wine.
And then
Oberon.
I don't know if we rated Oberon.
We didn't?
I don't think we did. We should do it. I don't have it on the list here. Maybe a listener can tell me if I missed it, or I can look. But I don't remember that we did that.
You guys did Howell Mountain, no?
Howell Mountain.
We did that. That's right.
So the Howell Mountain got an 8.4.
What?
Now, how much?
Guess why that was?
Wow.
Oh,
He
I'm
points to
serious.
Pagoda.
And Pagoda said he brushed his teeth before he came, so
Is
that
that
impacted
what-
it. But I was still upset about that.
How much is the Howell Mountain, Senator?
$80, is it?
No, it's 40.
Yeah.
Oh,
$40.
40,
Okay, it's a pricey bottle of wine. And the Stag's Leap? Do you remember how much that is?
It's like 65 now.
65, yeah.
And how much is this?
18.
18.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other one that we did.
Bam Bam Esquire.
Dude.
Case closed.
Thank you. $18.
The other one was the Jordan that got a 9.0.
Mm.
So this is one of the
So this
higher
is the
rated wines that
highest?
we've done.
Yeah.
The value is tremendous.
Yeah, so many factors in its favor.
Yeah, and a listener, like you said, a listener who's just getting into wine or is not very experienced, this is a very low risk investment
Yeah.
at $18.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, boys, we're coming to the end here of the Cohiba Lancero, the Laquito #1. How you guys feeling?
How are you feeling?
I love it.
How far down are you? About me?
I have
About
about
an inch?
an inch left.
Okay, me too. I like it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
So good, man. So good.
Oh, yeah.
Good to the end. I mean, it did build up some strength, but you still get the same sweetness, the same, baking spice,
Senator,
floral notes.
Can I have a little bit more before?
There's no more left.
Pagoda's asking for more wine.
I think he's
Someone's
out.
going to have to.
He's
Someone's going to
out.
have to restrain me in a second.
Okay.
He's out.
I'm just going to say, when we're at my place, my cellar is close to Pagoda.
Senator, how you feeling about the cigar before we rate it?
Very good. So the funny thing is, this is a perfect example of a cigar that I didn't want to be too quick to say anything about the final third. To me, you really need to look at the final fourth. And I say that because with a fundy, sometimes the final quarter is not that enjoyable for me. A fair amount of the time, actually. The whole 3/4 of it, fantastic. It's
Yeah.
just that last bit.
Yep.
And so I've been waiting to see how this is going to perform. It's even great in the last quarter.
Yeah, it's much richer now. I'm about
is.
an inch away, and I'm actually getting a lot of coffee and earth tones here, earth notes. Where I didn't get early on.
Yeah, the sweetness is kind of faded.
It's dissipated, but it's gotten richer
It's
through
very
the coffee
rich.
and
It's
earth
more
tones.
savory now
It
than
has.
sweet.
Yeah.
And a lot of these cigars, when we say like, oh, it's picked up in strength toward the very, final third or final fourth of it, a lot of the time, like when we say it's picked up in strength, it's tasting more like hot tobacco.
Yeah.
And that it's just stronger than what we were getting before. Bam calling out these notes, I think, are spot on. Like coffee, I'm actually getting.
Yeah.
It's maintaining flavor
It's a richer flavor.
down to this.
It's
down the
uncanny
stretch.
if you have certain espressos that pulls that earth note into that coffee. That's exactly what I'm getting.
Yeah, no, I preferred it in the second half, and the last quarter is definitely more in my wheelhouse. Yeah.
Yeah, this is really good.
Very good.
All right, you guys ready to do the formal lizard rating on this thing?
Can you go higher than a 10?
No.
All right, Rooster, you're up.
Yeah, it's a 10.
Okay.
It's an absolute 10. It can fit like any time during the day, afternoon, evening. It's very versatile. And it's fantastic. It's great.
Senator.
Great.
This is tough for me because yet again, I'm bouncing between a 9 and a 10.
Mm-hmm.
If this were purely based on flavor, it is a 10 for me. There's no doubt there.
I know where it's going.
But I
Value.
can't not factor in price. That's
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
to
yeah,
me,
yeah,
it has to, right? Like if I'm going to give a cigar a 10 and I want to pursue it all the time, like this is so cost prohibitive. I'm not going to pursue this all the time. I'm not going to smoke a lot of these. I wish I could, but at these prices, it's just absurd. You
So
can't.
what about at the price that Gizmo got this box for?
70 is still too high.
I think I paid 60.
60 is like the very end of what I'd be willing to pay, but I'd only smoke that very infrequently still. I mean, it would need to be sub 40 for me to smoke this, pull this out at least monthly, if not even more. So I'm going to have to go down to a 9 because I guess here's the best way I can put this. If if I were going to give this a 10 at $100 a stick, it would have to be the greatest cigar I've ever had.
Yeah.
And that would mean that even at $100 a stick, I'd pursue it. Not a lot of it, but I'd pursue some of it. And this to me is an outstanding cigar. I would happily smoke this again. But will I pursue paying $100 for this as if it's as if it is the greatest cigar I've ever had? I won't. And so that's the only reason I have to round down to a 9.
Have you found a cigar that you would pursue at $100?
If I could, if I had no more Vegas Urbana 2011 Classicos
Big
left,
time. That's big
and
time.
I wanted another, which I will always want another, and somewhere it popped up at $100 a stick, I would absolutely buy it.
I
Can
totally
I sell
agree
you
with
my
that.
half box
Yes.
for $100 a
Yes.
stick?
Yes.
All right.
I'll,
That's a yes.
I'll split that with him.
I mean, I'm not kidding.
Bam's
Like,
got
that's
a
how
box
good
and a
that
half.
is.
Yeah.
What?
I do not.
He does not.
I do not. I do not have that. Don't start that rumor.
I'm sorry, two and a half boxes.
Senator, it's not true.
Bam's getting red. He's getting nervous.
Oh boy.
I'm out.
All right, so here's how I'm going to go about this. So I've really fallen in love with this cigar, as you know. I paid $60 for this. That's how I'm looking at this cigar, and I'm also looking at the cigar I have in my hand, not the, call it the cumulative experience I've had with the specific box, which has been, I've had a couple duds, just in construction, which I've dealt with the Perfect Draw, and they ended up okay. But tonight, this cigar is absolutely one of the best Cohibas I've ever had. No question about it. And it's $60 a stick, which I paid for it. And this experience tonight, this is absolutely a 10 for me. I certainly respect what you said, Senator, about value. I think at 100, 120 to replace this box, I do think that has to factor in. But this specific cigar, absolutely a 10. Everything about this is perfectly designed for my palate. This cigar is perfect for me. If I could only smoke one cigar regularly, price not factored in, for the rest of my life, I would absolutely reach for the Cohiba Lancero. It is perfect for me. So,
Can I say one more thing I forgot to mention in kind of my review? The other reason, as you're saying that, when you were saying it's a perfect cigar for me, I was sitting there saying to myself, well, it's also the perfect cigar for me. But I'm realizing that there is one thing missing, which is actually why I'm feeling a little bit better about my 9. Not taking issue with your 10. That's
Sure.
perfect for you.
yeah, that's a palate thing.
Yeah. But what I'm realizing is when Bam talked about the richness in the final quarter and the coffee and things like that, the perfect cigar for me would be exactly this. The dessert notes are unbelievable, but with a bit more richness actually in the first 3 quarters of it.
Okay.
It was a little milder than the perfect cigar for me. So that's the other reason that I'm at a 9.
Okay. Pagoda.
I mean, I kind of like that it built up.
But it only got to it at like the very final quarter. I mean,
Yeah.
I would have wanted it to change like halfway. I want more of this.
Yeah, but then again, I like the floral notes in cigars.
Sure.
I
That's
kind of
true.
pursue
Of
pursue
course,
that.
I do too.
And let's not forget it had a pigtail.
Yeah.
Well, that's just a bonus. I put my own pigtail on cigars.
All right, Pagoda.
What do you think I'll rate it?
I think you're going to give it a 9. That's my guess.
You're right.
There you go.
It's a 9 for me. And, I think Senator kind of explained it in his second half. Like, I preferred the second half, and I wish there was a bit more of that richness even in the beginning. Not that I did not enjoy it, but like for me, it would be more of a morning cigar for me, typically.
Mm-hmm.
But towards the end, I'm like, oh, damn, this is wonderful. So I think a 9 is a fair score from my perspective. And considering the price point, I don't think I'll ever be able to reach it. So.
Bam, bam.
So when I first took the first few draws, I wouldn't consider this a dessert cigar. I find that Culebra that we had, remember that cigar?
The Partagas?
That was dessert from beginning to end. For me, that's a quintessential dessert cigar
That
because
had a lot of age on it.
and a ton of fruit. This started off with slight dessert notes and baking spice, a hint of it. But then as you get into the coffee toward the end, the complexity and the balance of this, for me, it is a 10 at $60. But at $100, I'm not going to go near this. I'd be at a 9 at $100.
Oh, we're rating this cigar for what he paid
Right.
for the box.
I
and
will
the
give it.
experience
I
right
will
now,
give it a
so-
10 because of that.
I'm surprised that you wouldn't call this a quintessential dessert cigar. I say that because we were getting
Yeah.
so much honey.
We
The
were,
first third of this is just
but your
straight
note,
honey.
your note early, just a moment ago, was spot on. It wasn't a in your face dessert.
Right.
It was very subtle.
That's fair.
So again, it always works out. I think the composite lizard score here, boys, is perfect at a 9.6,
Okay,
a 96. I think that's perfect for
That's
this
fair.
cigar.
I kind of agree.
That's fair.
For the,
Yeah.
how this
I
performed
agree.
tonight. And I think with even a little more age, another 3-4 years, I think this could reach 98, 99. I think it could very well get there.
I'm very happy with that score. I mean,
Yeah.
my fingers are starting to burn. That's how good this is in that last quarter. I can take no issue with that.
That's
Yeah.
rare for you.
Well, what an excellent night, boys.
Yeah, and it
It's awesome.
smoked really well, by the way.
Yeah.
Combustion was great.
Great construction, combustion, everything. I mean,
No touch ups.
So I think going forward, Gizmo should procure these and only give us the ones that are going to smoke perfectly.
And the ones
I'll
that are
smoke the Dutch.
and the ones that are $60 each.
All right, great. So wonderful conversation about Corona tonight. So we're going to continue in 2 weeks, part 4 of our Cuba trip. We're going to wrap it up in 2 weeks. And then, we'll continue on, hopefully do some interviews and whatnot. And we'll be back in Cuba sooner rather than later, hopefully. And certainly for any listeners out there who have questions about going to Cuba, who want a little initiation, feel free to email us or hit us up on the DMs and Instagram. Glad to help. It's absolutely worth the trip. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely.
Life-changing
Oh, yeah.
Life-changing.
in the best way. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't even say that exaggerating. It's just, I think Giz said before, like the impact that all of us here, it doesn't matter how much or how little you have in America, anyone is able to really improve a person, if not several people's lives in Cuba.
Absolutely. All right. So an excellent night. A 9.3 for the pairing tonight, the Marques de Casa Concha wine from Chile, and a 9.6 for the Cohiba Lancero. I'm very happy with that score.
Oh,
I was nervous, man.
Ear to
I
ear,
was
this
nervous
grin.
driving here. I was nervous.
It was an elegant night.
It was.
honestly.
It was.
It
Yeah.
was
From
an
beginning
excellent
to
night.
end.
Thank you, Giz.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll see you, like I said, we'll see you back here in 2 weeks for part 4. And we'll see everybody next week. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for joining us. You can find our merch store and ratings archive at our brand new website, loungelizardspod.com. That's loungelizardspod.com. Don't forget to leave us a rating and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any comments, questions, if you want to reach out, say hello, tell us what you're smoking, email us, hello@loungelizardspod.com. You can also find us on Instagram @loungelizardspod. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.